This episode is brought to you by the outstanding shows of the You Run Podcast Network. From TV to true crime and everything in between, the network is your home of entertainment. So don't delay. Join in with the fun at yourunpodcast.com today.
Are our listeners trying to make us take another hiatus? Are they trying to break me?
I don't know. I think this is that they're trying to break me as well. We're both parents, and so this is excruciatingly painful. Not joking, mentally painful to deal with this type of case. So, listeners, be nicer.
Yeah, be nicer on the next one. This is rough. Really is.
Heather's raging, old news she screams. The new word chases are all that she dreams. We dive into cases both weird and grim, from Zodiac ciphers to Tiger King's whim. We're You Run Podcast, the oddball pair. We're pretty damn good to be fair. You Run Podcast, true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manson's madness to Tupac's case, we're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a weekend and nod. You Run Podcast, approved by God. Probably not.
Hello and welcome to the You Run Podcast True Crime. My name is Scott.
And I'm Heather.
And before we get into this week's case, I want to kind of break the fourth wall a little bit and talk a little bit about what we've got going on at the moment. So me and Heather are recording massively in advance. You're watching this in May or listening to this in May. It's coming up to Christmas, so we're recording this in December. We've just had our Spotify Wrapped for the year. So if you don't know what that is, this is when Spotify take all of the figures that they get throughout the year, compare it against last year, and tell you how well you've done. I cannot thank you enough. We cannot thank you enough.
It's great.
240% increase in listeners, which is huge.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. And you guys are not going to see my Spotify Wrapped because it's embarrassing. I was like, how do they do this? Because some of the music end of it, I was like, pretty sure I didn't listen to that song that much. Maybe it was because the way it was in queue, and I was just like, whatever. This is my business. It was super stupid. Basically, had me being a New Kids on the Block like all the time, and I'm like, I haven't listened to them that much.
See, I see you as in the car on the way to drop the kids off, New Kids on the Block all the way.
I know. I've seen them twice in concert as an adult because I didn't get to as a child because didn't have a ton of money growing up, and then I think by the time I may have been old enough, maybe they were faded out some. Kinda, but anyway, I saw him as an adult, and 10 out of 10. I saw Nelly and TLC and Boys to Men. So I was like I was back in junior high. But anyway, they were fantastic. I don't care if they're older. They're
and I imagine your Spotify Wrapped has got such a wide spectrum as well. I imagine there's a bit of everything in your Wrapped.
It is. Because the podcasts that I mainly listen to, we discuss those. I don't like to say specifically on air, because I know that I could do better with listening to more of a wide variety of podcasts, but I get hyper fixated on a couple, and those are the ones that I listen to out of a habit.
Yeah.
So
and there's nothing wrong with
there
that.
You go. No.
Also, we are in the top 15% of all video podcasts in the world on Spotify.
I like that.
That is blew my mind. There are so many video podcasts, and to be in the top 15%, just wow.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A huge boost to my enthusiasm was needed after the last couple of cases we had, and I got these Wrapped results as I was investigating this, and I was literally at the point where I'm like, I'm so fucking done. I don't even want to talk about this shit. And then I got the Wrapped results. I was like, people like me talking about I will power through, and I have powered through. If you've never listened to this show before, we're an interactive true crime podcast. We let you pick the movies we review, the cases we cover.
Well, you do let them pick the movies that you review on your other podcasts. That is correct.
This is very true. But on here, you
Yeah.
pick the cases, and you do that through our Instagram, which is at You Run Podcast. While you're there, give Heather a follow. She's at Wednesday Wine and Horror.
Yes.
I found out, or I've come to the realization that British serial killers and British murderers are far more twisted than anything we've covered in the United States. So
there's less of them. There's less of them, though.
Yeah, but
it's normal.
Do they make an extra fucking effort to be extra worse because there's not as many of them? Like,
I don't know. I'm not British. So you tell me, mate, because I really don't know, because I think about it and I'm like, you guys don't have the amount of serial killers that like the United States does. I mean, you just don't. There's no kind of comparison. But it does seem that we get the ones that we do, they're pretty
nasty.
Yeah, they're really extreme, which we also have extreme cases, of course. But they're in the top of the cesspool. Like, they're the worst of the worst, basically. So
yeah. And today we're looking at a murder from 1993. Now, I remember this as a kid. I remember seeing it on the news, and I didn't really absorb it all, but it was the first time I remember being a kid where I had a realization of actually the world is quite a scary place. Now, this case stuck with me, not all the details, but just little things stuck with me. And it actually made me really hyper vigilant as a parent. Like, having my child abducted is like, that's my worst fucking fear. I can't think of anything worse. And like, I'm really protective over my kids. And the fact that a 2-year-old got abducted, like, it still haunts me to this day that happened. And after we've been through this case, I'm pretty sure tonight is going to haunt my fucking nightmares as well. But you all voted for us to take a look at and share some of our unfiltered thoughts about Robert Thompson and John Venables, and look at the horrific murder of a very young James Bulger.
2-year-old James was last seen over 48 hours ago outside this butcher's shop in a Bootle arcade. Security cameras photographed his apparent abduction by 2 youths. As they walked out of the centre, one witness actually challenged them, but the youths said they were taking James to his mother. Lying protected under a police tent, the body of a boy, found this afternoon by officers hunting for 2-year-old James Bulger. The police had maintained their optimism for most of the day that James may have been sheltering out of sight. The body was discovered on a railway line right next to a police station in Walton, Liverpool.
Today, the police investigating the murder announced a breakthrough in their inquiries.
Following the abduction of James Bulger from the New Strand shopping precinct in Bootle on Friday the 12th of February 1993, and the subsequent findings of his body on the railway line in Walton on Sunday the 14th of February, 2 boys aged 10 years from Walton area have been arrested and are currently being interviewed by Merseyside police at police stations on Merseyside.
The 2 boys became hate figures, labelled sick and evil. Once they were jailed, many believed they should never be released.
But they were.
It's really sad. No, they were, but it's really sad. They're like little.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they were 10, but they're little tots. Like, they were so small. What part of the UK was this in? I know you said Walton.
Liverpool, yeah. So just outside Liverpool, north of the country.
The accent, I can tell. Like, it must be. I don't know if that's north, south of you, but I know.
If you go south of me, you end up in the sea. I'm as south as you can go.
Oh, yeah, you're at the very end. Okay, so this is closer. Yeah, it's got like a. There was something weird about their accents, and I was like, well, it's still. I don't know. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. But I was just fixated on the fact that they don't sound as British, if that makes
No.
sense. They sound different. But anyways, yeah, they're so small. And you look at these mug shots of these two small children. Yes, they're 10, but like they look like they're 7 years old. Both of them.
Yeah, they really do. And like as tragic as this case is, it's a very open and shut. It's very clear
It
cut,
is.
and we're very
It
much
is.
going to deliver the facts and opinions today. There's no need for a second follow on to this, which I'm thankful for. On the 12th of February, James Bulger was abducted. He was 2 years old at the time. His mum, Denise, let go of his hand to pay for shopping, which when I go shopping, we spoke about this off the air. So when I go shopping, even now with my older children, well, not older, but my like 8 and 9 year old, when I go to pay, I need to let go of them or not be as near to them because I'm going for my wallet, or I make them stand in front of me. And I think that all stems from the knowledge of this case growing up. Like this stuck with me watching it on the news at like 11 years old. Now, I want to get this out there straight away. I don't think this is Denise's fault. I think it's important to say that what this woman suffered is horrific. Like, I can't imagine as a parent how it would have felt for the 2 days that her son was missing. And I don't even want to try and comprehend what it would be like after they found her son. Like,
Was the guilt? Can you imagine the guilt that she had from just doing something that she probably had done with James several times, going shopping, letting go of his hand just to grab her money, do whatever? Because I think a lot of us take for not for granted, but we just don't really think about it. We're not as hyper vigilant on it. I mean, you and I have the same kind of stance on it's our worst fear. But at the same time, I know when you have your children beside you, you just do not think that. And this is where the case starts to bother me, because I'm like, well, if she was paying, she let go of his hand. I would still, again, I'm not shaming her. I'm saying, how do you not notice that your 2-year-old walked off or was walking? I wish there was more of an evidence or something to kind of like, what else happened? Something else happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really difficult to fathom, like that your child could just wander off. I'm going to put a disclaimer out on this episode, and I'm going to say it now that this is both disturbing and heartbreaking. Like I remember this happening, but I didn't remember all the details. And when I started to read through this, this made me cry. Like there's bits in this that are just heart-wrenching. So Robert and John abducted James. That they took him from the shopping centre and they walked about 1/4 of a mile away to a canal. And this is where they first started doing horrible things. They dropped him on his head, which caused wounds to his face. The boys apparently joked about throwing him in the canal and watching him drown. Now, there was an eyewitness who saw James and saw that he was crying his eyes out and didn't intervene and assumed
I have a real issue
brothers.
with this. I have a real issue.
We've said this before. Like, if there is something that you look at and it is not right, like you don't necessarily have to put yourself in harm's way, but these are kids. Like these are 10-year-old kids. In this scenario, you put yourself into that situation and go, what's going on? But even if you don't want to do that, pick up the phone and call the police.
Well, my thing is that they saw, what did they see? Did they see that they were being mean, doing horrible things to James? Or was it just that I don't understand. That's what I'm saying.
They saw James crying his eyes out being led along the canal by two boys.
I'm going over there. I don't give a fuck. I'm going over there.
I am as well.
I'm walking over there and I'm going over there, because that's odd in itself that there would be 2 small children with a baby, an infant, or not infant, I'm so sorry, a toddler in the middle of the railroad tracks. And see, a lot of this shit just doesn't,
Yeah, see, this was on the canal before they
Weird.
got to the railway tracks. But even so,
Yes.
like 2 young boys with a toddler, and if that toddler's crying and screaming, I'm gonna say something. Is everything okay?
I'm physically
Oh,
going over
oh,
there.
oh, yeah, so am I. I'm gonna go over
Yes.
and go, "What's going on?" And if
Yeah.
they
I'm
go, "Oh,
taking that
he's my,"
baby. Like,
yeah,
fuck
oh,
them.
yeah, if they go, "Oh, he's my brother, I'm taking him wherever," I'll be like,
Like,
"Okay,
no.
you come with me. We're gonna call the police, and the police can take you." Like
Yeah.
that.
It is hard to fathom,
Yeah.
but anyways,
Um,
I just don't.
They made James walk a further 2.5 miles across Liverpool. During this time, they were spotted by over 30 people because there's
Mhm.
over 30 police statements. Now, most of
Jesus.
which done nothing. Some
No, I
people did
know.
intervene, some people did question them, and the boys would either say that the James was their little brother and they were taking him back to their mum, or they would say that they found him and they were walking to the police station, which tracked
But
because they were walking in the direction of the local police station.
I understand that. I know. But again, my issue is that they had already been abusing him
Yeah,
and he had markings on him.
yeah,
I still would have not let them go. Like, what are those two good kids going to do?
yeah.
Like, I'm
I
not letting you go anywhere. I don't know you.
No, I agree with you. The boys
Yeah.
reached an area called Walton, and
Hmm.
where they were, they would have to walk past Walton Police Station. So instead of doing that, they walked up a steep bank onto the railway tracks. And this is where, like, I can't even fathom what I'm about to say is something that actually happened. So they
Yeah.
threw blue paint that they'd stolen earlier in
I
James's
don't.
eye. They kicked him, stamped on him, forced batteries in his mouth, and believed to have forced them into his anus as well. They
Hmm.
stripped him from the waist down and finally dropped a 10 kilogram, which is a 22-pound railway fish
Hmm.
plate, on his head.
Hmm.
During the autopsy, it was identified that James's foreskin had forcibly been pulled back and he had suffered 42 injuries. Due to
Yeah.
the prolonged torture and multiple injuries, it was impossible for the forensic pathologist to identify what had caused the fatal blow.
Man, this
Like,
is hard to talk about, Scott. I gotta try. Like, I
uh,
mean, I
uh,
have a 2-year-old son. You
it,
know
it,
this.
yeah, like I don't understand. Like, we've spoken
Doesn't
so
make
many
any
times about how part of it for me is understanding what's going through the killer's mind. And for lots of serial killers, I can get the motivation that they have. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. There is
Yeah.
absolutely no motive to this at all. There is no reason other than these boys wanted to do it.
And they're also children. So
Yeah,
most of well, I would say this might be our first case. It is our first case where we're dealing with actual
yeah,
children being the actual perpetrators versus it being an adult. It doesn't make it any less. It's not any worse or anything like that. So, well, actually, it is kind of worse to me in a sense because
yeah.
there is no motive. There is no, I'm not laughing about it. This is just how I deal with trying not to get upset about it. It just doesn't make any sense. Did they
No,
want to just
just
you
hurt
can't
him.
find any motive. You can't find anything though.
No, you really can't. And like, we did cover the Slender Man stabbing, which was children, but the Slender Man
That
stabbing,
is true. Yes.
they had a motive, they had a reason. Like, even
They
as
had
fucking stupid as it was, I understood why they done what they done.
because they were brainwashed to an extent
Yeah,
of like, oh, Slenderman said to do this. You're right. I did completely forget about the Slenderman case. This one though is more heinous because it doesn't make any sense. It's
no,
literally, I just feel like if my child, like, let's say that your 2-year-old, you pay for your stuff. I'm still, again, I'm not trying to backtrack, but I'm still trying to fucking figure out how the 2-year-old
disappears.
just,
Yeah,
how long does it take you to pay? Like, I'm going to pay and I'll look down. Where's my son? I'm fixing that crazy and run through this fucking place and I'm about to scream his name. And that's
yeah,
me. I just know how I would react. So I just don't know. It's just hard. Again, I'm not shaming the mother. I cannot imagine
Yeah,
the guilt.
but I get it. I'm the same as you. Like,
Yeah.
if like there are times where I've like with the older boys when they were sort of 10, 11, we go into a shop and they go down their own little aisle to pick some sweets or something like that, and I'm like down the end of an aisle, and as people like walk past them in a busy shop, I am the parent that's like a meerkat going to make sure
Yeah,
that I can
because
still.
we just don't live in a nice world, and you can't be too careful. And people they call it helicopter parenting, because when you're real close, but I don't give a fuck. That's how I am, and I will always be that way. And I'm still protective of my adult child, as you
Yeah.
have adult children too. So it's like, I mean, why? It doesn't matter. It's your business. Be as invasive as you want to.
Hear my propellers coming. I am the helicopter parent.
My
Um,
antennas are up. Same
yeah.
thing. Like, I'm watching. Yeah, I just can't. Mm-mm.
Police were actually. We talk about so many cases where the police are
Yeah.
shit. The police in this were actually very good. They
Yeah.
leapt into action very quickly, not just
Mhm.
launching a search, but also investigating the disappearance. So they obviously mounted a huge
Yeah.
search, but they went down the route of sorry, getting CCTV footage, and they had that out to national news outlets across every
I
TV
remember
station.
seeing it on
It,
TV. I remember because I was like 10 at the time when it happened. You were 11. So
yeah,
we were about the same age, and I remember seeing it on TV. I mean, they were showing the CCTV of the two boys
yeah,
holding his hand, which is just uh,
yeah. But they
I
had this
just
out
it's
within
I can't.
hours.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but they had this out within hours, and they also had a
Yes, they did.
national helpline, sort of a tips hotline set up, almost immediate. It's like it happened. They got the CCTV as soon as they knew that the boy had been taken and wasn't just lost. That was it. It was
Yes.
like everything was released to the press. Find this little
Mhm.
boy. An early lead led to the arrest of a boy who was quickly discounted. So they thought it was another child that had taken him. That
Yeah.
boy and his family had to flee the city because of death threats. So at the
I
time,
imagine.
like
Yeah.
I don't know how well this was covered in the States, but there was a huge community uproar. There were people conducting their own searches, their own investigations. This was
Mhm.
there was people who were looking for sort of vigilante justice on this. It was like, if we find these people who've taken this little boy, they're going to die,
Yeah, I feel
which is
like
wild.
the stuff that we see from the States, if it doesn't happen in the United States, it tends to be more of the cliff notes of what we get, of what we see on the case evolving. So I don't recall that. Again, I was 10 and that was a long time ago. But I more so recall it being just the macabreness, I don't think that's a word, the macabre of the case. It's like he's been lost or he's been kidnapped, and boom, this is the bad part. Unfortunately, this is what happened. And I don't remember it being any other situations, I mean, where there was anything. That's kind of, I guess, because we don't live there, so you had more of the details of the extra stuff, I would say.
Yeah, so it was the following day that police released an enhanced CCTV, so they've managed to clean
Hmm.
it up and get some better shots of the boys. And this
Yeah.
is when a local woman recognised the two boys and said that she'd seen them playing truant in the area. So it's a fairly small town, that area, so she knew who the boys were, knew their parents, and reported it. And the police quickly picked them up for questioning. Um, DNA evidence had these two boys banged to rights beyond any doubt, to the point that they didn't even need to interview these boys if they didn't want
No,
to.
I
They were,
mean they're 10. They were
yeah,
10.
th- th-
I
th-
mean, you can't expect.
no, they were covered in paint, the blue paint. They were covered in the blood. They're like,
Exactly.
they had, one of them had distinct markings on their trainer, and they matched identically to bruising on James.
Yeah.
During the police interview, and this just goes to show that they were children. So one of the boys, Robert, asked if they'd taken James to hospital to get him alive again.
Yeah, because it makes you it, again, you guys, we don't There is no motive for this case. It's literally like it seems almost not real for me. It's hard for me to even, it's almost like, what else are we supposed to discuss? Because we don't know why they did it. And even being interviewed as adults, which we'll talk about, I don't,
Yeah.
no one knows.
We still don't.
You just
We
fucking
still
did
don't
it.
know.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
The boys were charged with murder on the 20th of February, and only which is literally 8 days after they abducted James, which is super
Yeah.
fast.
Yes.
They appeared at the youth court, where they were, or their legal team was expecting to get them bail. The judge remanded them in custody until trial. Now, we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we're going to kick the life out of the British judicial system, because it's a refreshing change from kicking the life out of the United States judicial system, which are both
Hey, they're both shit. They're both shit.
equally shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there you
we're
go,
going to
guys.
take we're going to take a quick break. Also, the ad break is very Christmassy because it's Christmas, and I forgot I needed a separate one because this comes out in May. But hey,
Yeah.
here's the break.
When you have finished this episode, why not head over to yourunpodcast.com and see what else is on offer. Launched at the start of the year, the network is a place for podcasters and YouTubers alike to showcase their fantastic work. Over the last 12 months, we have carefully curated a selection of 15 shows, bringing you something to suit all tastes. Movie reviews, TV series discussion, true crime, conspiracy theories, paranormal investigation, and crypt tales are a selection of what is on offer. Also on the website, you will find links to all of our socials, our shop, and our first feature-length film. The You Run Podcast Network really is your home of entertainment, so don't delay, get online and visit yourunpodcast.com and find your next binge-worthy experience. Now back to the show.
So yeah, head over to yourunpodcast.com, check out all the other network members. There's actually 19 now, plus our shows. There's
we're
like
growing.
22. Yeah, we're growing a lot, and there's a lot on there for everyone. So go and have a look. Have a nosy at our shop while you're there. Have a nosy at the link to the movie that we released. All that kind of stuff. There's loads on there.
Yes.
Now, trials we don't really cover that much because they're long, they're boring, they're just dull. We're going to discuss a little bit more about the trial because I've got lots of things I want to get Heather's opinion on, because when I read it, I was like, why are you doing this? And yeah, I want another viewpoint because I think my viewpoint may not be the correct one. Firstly, let's just cut any like they were found guilty 100%, like the right decision. It's not even a question. Now, there are a few things that raised eyebrows for me when I was reading through this, and I think it was probably caused by the public pressure, because there was a huge amount of public pressure. They had 500 plus people outside the court every day with banners. There was people calling for the death penalty to be brought back because of this case. Now, the first one is the boys were trialed as adults, and I want to get your thought where you sit on this. So I'm for what they've done, I'm kind of on board. Like, trial them as adults, give them the maximum sentence you possibly can. Like, I don't think juvenile hall is going to help these two boys, but what do you think?
I do not feel, because they were 10 years old when they committed this crime. And you have to bring in a lot of other stuff in it. Okay. You've got to bring in your psychiatrist, your psychologist. You've got to bring all this stuff in here to figure out that their brain chemistry is not quite developed yet. They do understand the difference between right and wrong. That's a fact. One of them does suffer from something is obviously really wrong with him. It was John. There's something wrong with him, obviously. But my whole stance is they still knew what was right from wrong. They knew what they did was not right. I don't think that they could really understand the consequences because they didn't understand about jail time and et cetera. And so that takes me into saying to be into just a juvenile holding until you're 18 or 21. That's only 8 to 11 years. I do
Yeah.
not feel like that is enough punishment, because if they can't be rehabilitated and there is no remorse for the crimes, that's a problem in itself.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that they would be. I know one of them would reoffend. The other one, we seem to be, he's out of the, we don't know much about him. We know more about John Venables than we do Robert Thompson. But no, I think that they should have stayed in jail. Like, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I know that sounds harsh for children, because I know people might come at it and be, well, they were children and they should get, no, they were still old enough to know what they did was wrong. It's
Yeah.
not about knowing about the consequences. It's about knowing that you knew you were doing something that was wrong to that little boy.
Yeah. And I agree. And the
Yeah.
judge's ruling on this was really sketchy. So, like, the judge
Yes.
gave a minimum of 8 years before parole.
That's what I'm saying.
Now, this was challenged immediately. Like, this was legally challenged, and then they increased it to 15. Then it was reduced to 12. And I think the judge was trying to account for their maturity levels. And I
Yeah.
know
I
that
mean,
this had, like,
yeah.
high-level government in the UK were heavily involved in trying to increase the sentence, and it was a whole thing. And I was a bit disappointed in how the judge sentenced them, but he did do one thing to redeem himself a little bit for me. So normally when it's children that commit murders, their names are redacted. They don't release the names
Yes.
of children to the press. The judge, however, made the decision that he was going to. And when he was asked in a statement why he done that, his response was, the public interest for safety overrode the interests of the defendants, in my opinion. Now, he was heavily criticised for this for years after, but I think he done the right thing.
That for him, I don't agree with that for him being criticized, because if you commit a crime, why should you be allowed any type of privacy in that? Why should
No.
you be allowed anything? You just took another living person from someone, and regardless of your age, you don't deserve it. To me, I'm sorry, but I don't think it, I'm not, I don't know. It gets into that whole like an eye for an eye, that kind of stuff. And it's not that necessarily for me. It's the fact that you still should be punished for what you did, and you don't deserve any special treatment because you were a child. Again, 10 years old. Do your research on it, okay? Like, as far as brain development, the brain is still developing, but they still at 10 years old know right from wrong. 5-year-olds know, oh, if I do this, this is naughty and I shouldn't do it, or etc. But yeah, they don't get consequences. They don't understand that, like, if I killed this person at 5, just this is an extreme example, they wouldn't understand the judicial system or understand jail, but the act of what they're doing, they do understand that it's bad.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between what these two boys done, which is heinous torture and murder, versus a kid like pushing another kid and that kid falling in the road and getting hit by a car. Like, that child, they probably should protect that child's name, because that was a kid being a dumb kid that caused a tragic
If it was an accident, if you can know for sure it was an accident. Yeah, but this was like almost not scripted, but it was planned out, because they did other things to this baby that it's unfathomable. I can't fathom it. It's just so hard to understand how. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
know.
get it.
Guys.
We're going to talk a little bit about their time in and out of prison. But before we do, there's something that I want to talk about, because it was a big thing in the press here. And it had a big impact on me personally as a child. So we used to go to Blockbuster Video every single every Saturday without fail.
So did I.
We used to go there, and like, my parents were very much like, they would kind of let me pick whatever I wanted
Yeah.
within reason. There was the
Yeah.
odd title where they'd be like, absolutely not. Put The
Yeah.
Exorcist back. You're not watching that. But as a general
Not yet.
rule, I could kind
Mhm.
of watch what I wanted. After this happened, it was PG all the way. And even the PGs, they would double check. Like, and sometimes, like, you can watch this on Sunday because we're going to watch it tonight. And this is all because the press latched on to the fact that they recovered lots of horror movies from one of the houses. I can't remember. I've got it in my notes. I'll get to it in a minute. But one of the children had a lot of horror movies, and
Yes.
it was blamed in the press on video nasties. The main one being Child's Play 3. And that was singled out
Yeah.
because in that movie, Chucky gets shot with a blue paintball. Now, it was Robert who had horror movies. He had over 200 VHS, and it was believed at the time that he made John watch them with him, and this was like a thing they'd done together. Police had to go through every single one of the movies. Literally, they watched 200 horror movies during their investigation, and they were doing that to see if there was any direct links that they could pick up, any
Yes.
specific thing that was done in a horror movie that was then replicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the detective who led this investigation released a statement after it was him who'd sat and watched all 200 horror movies. He said, there are some that you and I wouldn't want to see, but nothing. No scene, no plot, no dialogue, nothing where you could put a finger on it, freeze it, and say that influenced the boy to commit the murder.
I just don't believe in horror movies influencing people because as a child, I watched horror films
So did I.
younger than 10, and I'm not a serial killer, nor did I have ever wanted to hurt someone like that, nor would I have ever. So I think it's a little contrived to blame movies. And also you have this more current cases where they blame video games. I do understand some children. Again, this deals with the development. This deals with stuff that I'm not really qualified to really speak on because I am not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But having children, knowing the maturity level of them and what they can and cannot handle. I don't allow my kids to play violent video games, and it's not because I'm worried. It's more of you need to be a little more mature to understand it, to play it. And to me, it's a little different than watching a horror film because you're acting out in the video game. You're shooting, you're doing things like that versus a video where it is not you. You're watching a simulation of like a crime or a murder or something. But again, I think it's very silly to just blame that. Oh, they watched a scary movie, so they must. That's why they're like that.
Yeah.
It's not. There's something wrong.
So the police were pressured by the media on this a lot.
Yeah.
And it led to the inspector of Merseyside Police at a press conference saying, if you're going to make the link to any movies like that because there are slight similarities, are we going to link this to the railway children?
Yeah,
And
it's just you
after
can't
that,
because
the press sort of started dialing it back a little bit. But when they reviewed the Criminal Justice Act the following year, they did clarify rules for the rental and the sale of like age ratings. Like they really hammered home because I remember being, I don't know, like 12, like 10, 11. I could go into Blockbuster on my own and rent a 15. No one would give a shit at all. I could go and buy like music with explicit lyrics and no one cared. And after this, it was like, that was an absolute no-no. Everywhere you went is like, are you old enough? Do you have ID? Which I don't think
that
is necessarily...
or your parents had to buy it for you, or be there. It's just like going to the cinema, to the theater. You can't watch an R rating. I think you have to be 18 or 16 or 18 or something. I don't know. I don't go to the cinemas anymore because I hate people because they ruin everything for you. You might as well just wait for it to stream and watch it in your own damn house. But yeah, I remember that too, because I mean, I had my share of CDs when I was like 12, 13. My mom bought me. They had the explicit. I don't even think my mom really even paid attention to that, but yeah,
No,
so it was a thing.
you and me were listening to Tupac going, "I fucked your
Tupac,
bitch in the
yeah.
clinky clank," like that. That was daily listed for us.
And it
Um,
wasn't like I said, not everything. It's so easy to just blame media on a lot of things, and I do get that. I do understand that some children can be influenced
yeah,
um, by things like that. But you have a deeper problem than what they are watching or playing. You
I
have
agree.
a deeper issue that needed to be addressed before the video game, before the film.
Yeah. So they both got sentenced to their 8 years. So
Yeah,
Robert served his sentence without incident, and in 2001 he was paroled under very specific terms of
yeah,
license. So he was given a false identity. Um, to our knowledge, he's not reoffended. I've seen several things online where people think they found him and think he might be a paedophile. I've seen other ones where they think they found him, they think he's married to a man. I found another one where they thought he was
yeah.
married and he
That's.
had kids.
I don't think he's married and has children. I do think. I mean, he may or may not have a partner. I feel like he shouldn't have got a secret identity. But anyway, that's neither here nor there because it was like you did a heinous crime
Yeah.
and now you are being, in quotations, rewarded by getting to start over. Well, guess what? James Bulger does not get to start over. You took an innocent life, and I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either. He stated at his parole hearing that if he had had a better life and a better education, he doesn't think he would have ever committed the murder. But again, that's not an excuse for what he done. He still knew the
Well,
difference
it's
between
just
right and wrong.
it's circumstantial is what it is. It's not an excuse. There are people that come from terribly abusive homes, but they don't all turn out to be it's such a very hard thing to talk about.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what I mean? It's like something you could talk about for days, for years, because you're like, well, you came from an abusive household, but you're not abusing people. Um, and I
yeah, and
understand that that stuff affects children. It does affect us all differently. But
yeah,
again, let's help people out. The one of the biggest issues in this case is that it doesn't seem like anybody cared to help them mentally.
no one helped them. No one even tried
There
to
was
help
no
them.
mental health. There was something wrong with both of those children. I know we're fixing to talk about John.
Yeah,
He's
John,
obviously the problem.
John, I've got no real words for John. Well, I do, and I'm going to say lots of words about
It's
John. So,
gross.
John, like, is still in prison, and
Yeah.
he's had an in and out of relationship with prison. Um, I would say he seems to have gotten worse over time, if that's even possible. So in 2001, he was given parole, the same as Robert,
Hmm.
with this new identity and
Yep.
loads of restrictions of what he could and couldn't do. In 2002, he started dating a woman with a 5-year-old son. And it was around this time that he'd started to download child pornography. Now,
So gross.
thankfully, the woman he was dating confirmed that he never met her child, which fucking thank God. He was also drinking heavily and massively into cocaine. In September of that year, he was arrested for a fight outside a nightclub. Um,
Yeah.
and he was found in possession of cocaine. And insanely, the British justice system decided to give him a curfew instead of sending him back to prison.
So fucking stupid.
Yeah. Um, Between 2002 and 2006, he also revealed his identity twice, his real
Hmm.
identity twice, meaning that they
Hmm.
then had to create a new identity and move him
Hmm.
again, um, all at the expense of the taxpayer, all at the expense of us. Like
Yeah, of course.
again, it's wrong. In 2010, he believed that his identity had been blown, and he was in fear for his life. So he contacted the police. When officers got to his home, they found him trying to remove a hard drive from his computer with a knife. Now, the policeman looked at that and went, this doesn't look right. So they took the hard drive and went and analysed what was on it. And they discovered a ton of child porn going back to 2002.
Yeah.
He was sent back to prison for 1 year. 1 year he was sentenced to.
Okay. Again, a slap on the wrist. It was like they let him out so that he could, I'm going to say this in quotations, rehabilitate or start over. But this man, this child, there was something wrong with this child to begin with. And he did not it's not that he got worse, it's that he never got any better. He never got help. And he is the person he was going to be. Had he not murdered the child, he would still have been that same person.
Yeah, he really would.
I know he would have been into CP. He would have done all those nasty things. And I mean, it still would have happened. It's just that the murder happened as well.
Yeah. Thankfully, they didn't release him straight away. He did spend more time in prison. In 2011, he was given yet another new identity. Now, this time he was due to be released, but he was given another new identity because they had a security breach in prison. So basically, the prisoners found out who he was, and he was going to be killed because police.
Well,
I don't know what the American prison system is like, but the UK prison system, if you're a child abuser or a child killer, you're going to die in prison for what you've done.
You're going to hear about, it's crazy because I watch a lot of not only true crime shows, but I mean, I watch stuff like the jail shows and like women in prison, women on death row, just all these other, not just women, but like all kinds of shows. And it has been known that there are some criminals, Scott, that are like, they are horrific. They're like top of a gang, have done some horrific things. But if you have committed a crime against a child, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's crazy how their moral compass can be, I'll kill this guy who didn't pay me for my drugs or something like that, right? It's just crazy how they can do that with it's just like whatever, but let that happen and they are like disgusted by it. Which I mean, it is disgusting. I'm not. It is. It's terrible.
It is. But these criminals that could be in there, like there are criminals who are in there for example, for rape or for sexual assault of a grown woman, and for them, like in their moral compass, that's fine. Like that's okay to them.
It makes you wonder. Again, it's almost kind of asinine to think.
Yeah, like that's
How
okay.
did you not feel the same empathy or sympathy for the victim that you raped? But I get it, and it's there's a lot of stuff that goes on with people that commit crimes against children like that, especially in a sexual nature. And they should be with Jarrett from Subway because that motherfucker needs to get his ass. He needs to go into hell too. Don't y'all ever? We are never going to do that case. We're not doing it. It's fucking disgusting.
I agree. It's never going to get.
No, we're not polling it. Y'all can talk about it. So y'all want to listen to it? Y'all want to listen on it? There's a documentary. It's Scott. You think this is horrible? It's fucking. I mean, this is horrible. It's atrocious.
Yeah. His parole was put back to 2013. In 2013, he stood in front of the parole board, and these morons released him again.
It's just. I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah, and no surprise to anyone listening, and definitely wasn't a surprise to me. I literally knew what the next thing was I was going to read. In 2017, he was returned to prison for more images of children.
Because he's. Yeah.
Now, in 2019, or in 2017, James Bulger's dad had launched a legal challenge to remove the protection of the secret identity from John, because he knew he'd been in and out. He knew he was reoffended, and he's like, he's an adult now. You should not be protecting him. Like, I got it. When you done it when he was a kid, I get it. But he's a grown ass man now, and you keep giving him new identities. You should stop. He lost this case. The judge said there is a strong possibility, if not probability, if his identity were known, he would be pursued, resulting in grave and possibly fatal consequences.
Well, I mean, you know, there's whose fault is that?
Exactly. In 2019, reports surfaced that British officials were looking to relocate John out of the UK. So they were talking to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand to send him there because it was more cost effective to taxpayers to send him to another country than to keep giving him new identities.
Well, yeah.
So, but again, like if you're the other country, like if I'm like the Prime Minister of Australia, we'd like to send you John Venables.
I really know. We do not want him, mate.
Absolutely not. You keep him. I do not want him here.
We don't want him. We'll feed him to the crocodiles. Like, get the fuck out of here. That would have been me. I'd been like, fuck you.
Yeah, you keep him. His last parole hearing was in 2023. And this time there was a sensible parole board who denied his parole, stating that they are nowhere near satisfied he is not a danger to the public.
He is a danger. Even if he did not, even if he wouldn't commit another murder, he's doing other stuff it's heinous. He's looking at child. It's disgusting. I don't even want to, it's hard to even say it. It's so gross. It's just, my thing is like, they know something's fucking wrong with him, because what is wrong with you as a gosh damn adult to be attracted or want to see a child? Like, that makes no fucking sense to me. And that is one of the things that is, I cannot wrap my mind around it. No matter how much I would research it. Like, obviously these people have something's wrong with them severely.
Yeah.
They are twisted. Okay. But it's, y'all know that he's going to do it. Like, you know that if he gets the opportunity, he would offend on a child.
Yeah.
Because if you're watching it, you're wanting to do it.
Yeah. And like, I've got strong opinions on offenses against children. Like, this case challenged my opinions a little bit, and it challenged them because the offenders were also children.
Yeah, it's different.
I don't know if what I'm about to say is kind of what everyone thinks, and I want to get your thoughts on it as well. But I think from the off, these boys should have been tried as adults. They should have got life without parole. Like, Robert seems to have reintegrated himself into society, but I can't ignore the fact that he's living a life, perhaps has a partner, or he has a job and he has friends, and none of these people know who he actually is. He's got this secret identity and this
because
deep,
he looks
dark
different
secret.
too. So how would you know?
Yeah, like these children, whether they had a good childhood or a bad childhood, like if they had, like we've spoken about people like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy who had particularly horrible childhoods. Even Fred and Rose.
Most of the serial, most serial killers do. Most of them. You will hear us talk about ones that they had a normal childhood, and you're like, what? But that doesn't. It's nature versus nurture. You start getting into that aspect of it, and it's not about that. It's a mental health. There's something wrong. It's something that's not wired up there right.
Yeah, I don't care how bad their childhood was. Like, if they had a horrible childhood, I'm really sorry for them. But they tortured a toddler.
A 2-year-old.
And they delivered the most devastating thing that could ever happen to a family, which is losing your child. Now, the family actually fell apart. So the mum and dad divorced in 1995. So they had another child. It kind of, I'm guessing it was never the same.
Well, it never will be. And that's extremely common through a traumatic event like that. Scott, that's going to happen. It's going to be very hard for there to be like, oh, we stayed together. Like, yes, it happens, but for them to be divorced, it's not a shocker at all.
No, it's not. And they've both gone on and they've both been remarried and had families with their new partners. And they both still very much are involved in this case to this day with John and the parole hearings. And it is tragic because that's something that's now dominates their life. And at least once,
well, they will die with that.
Years,
they'll never get it. It feels like you'll never get any justice for your baby.
No. And my opinion on this, that I think may be a little bit harsh, but I hope John remains in prison for the rest of his life.
And I agree with you,
regardless of what age he was when he done this, it is unforgivable. And I don't believe that Robert should be out either. And
I think Robert is I agree and disagree, but I agree more than I disagree, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
do you know sometimes that he was influenced, but
how close were they watching these? Like, John was in and out of prison with child porn every time he went back in. Why is there not something in there going, you do not have access to the internet? You are not allowed on the internet. Why were there not more restrictions and more controls? Why was there not, like, he's going to see his parole officer once a week? Why is that not fucking daily? Like, why is it not, like, why are they not dominating this guy's life to make sure he's safe? And if there's the slight inkling he's not,
can't answer
back to jail.
I know it leaves us with more questions than answers. There was actually a case here where I live, Scott, where I did not know this person, of course, but there was a man that was arrested on, it was like 160 counts of child pornography because it was things he had on his computer, but he also had produced some of them. He was a father. He was a father of a small child and was still doing this shit. And this is like where I fucking live. This dude just looked like I'm not going to say he just looked like a normal guy, but he just looked like a man.
And like,
it was disgusting.
I've got no tolerance for that. And
no, they can die and go to hell. I don't care how mean that sounds. Like, to me, I'm sorry, but I can't in my heart. No,
I'm full on for, like, if you're in prison and you're in prison there with a child abuser, fucking feel free. Like, I'll post you.
I mean, you're already in prison, and if you know you're not getting out, what's one more thing? I think it's a vengeful thing. It feels like you're, again, we're not promoting. It's not like we're promoting like, oh yes, you should kill people. No,
but that is
it's not in our hands.
Crime.
But I'm gonna tell you one thing: you let something like that happen to one of my children,
I'll be in prison. Like, it's the worst thing.
100%.
Yeah, like doing the child is defenseless. They don't understand. They can't.
No,
it's just fucking awful.
It is.
But I know me and Heather have strong thoughts on this, and I'm really interested to know what everyone else thinks. Everyone who's listening, like, it's really divisive when there are children committing crimes against children and talking about trialing them as adults and talking about, like, if the death penalty was available, I think they should have got it. Like, that's a strong statement to make. And I'm not going to say you're wrong, like, if you call in, but I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this, because I just want to know. I'm really confused. And, like, this, I'll be honest, the discussion about children harming other children was the reason I picked this case. I put this in the poll because I was like, if we get that, we can talk about, like, how you deal with that, how you deal with when it's a child. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it until I read through it, and I'm like, these motherfuckers, like, are the worst. The absolute worst.
I mean, it just feels like to me that there was not much rehabilitation done on either part. It was sort of like, okay, we're just going to put them in a detention center. When they turn of legal age, we will let them out. We will give them a secret identity. And that just does not seem justifiable for what they took that little baby's life. It just does not. Can they be rehabilitated? Could they have gone through massive amounts of therapy? There is the potential that they could. And I'm saying could, not that they would. that does not seem to have been offered. There was no help. And that's what's wrong with this fucking world as it is. There's so many people that are suffering, and people don't take mental health serious. And it still seems very taboo. And it should not be, because people are people. And it's sad that there could be things, possibly suicides, just all kinds of stuff prevented if we had access to better mental health. But unfortunately, we just don't. And you have shit like this that happens. And then everybody's left to be like, oh, we don't know what went wrong. Question mark, question mark.
Yeah.
Bad.
Like, the end of this, like it's a tragic case where a toddler lost their life through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
A family was destroyed through no fault of their own, and with no motive, just because they wanted to. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it. Like,
There's not. It was there was no justification. It was a senseless act. That's what it was. These two boys have never admitted why they did it. Did they do it because they just wanted to see what it felt like to kill someone? Because sometimes you get answers like that, and I guess even though that's a terrible answer, you get a reason, right? But there's nothing. It's just like, why did you do it?
Yeah, it's awful.
I hate it.
Let's wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't vote a case like this on again. I'm not going to give you one. I'm not going to give you one to vote on like this again.
That is true.
But
we're going to take a long break from true crime is hard to deal with in general, Scott, but
it is. I think we need to for the next case we need to leave the British Isles, because we have some serious fucking issues over
come back
here.
to the US and deal with these cuckoos.
I think the next case we'll do, like, I don't know, we'll pick the best of the US, if that's a thing you can have with serial killers.
We might possibly do some culty stuff. I do get culty stuff as everything. Like I said, true crime ain't for the weak, honey. It's bad. It's all bad. But you have some cases that are more just insane versus, and we can get into let's get into less murder maybe for a little bit is what I'm going for.
We'll do that. I say a little teaser for everyone later this year, because you're listening to this, we are in the middle of 2025. Later this year, there is going to be an update from our friend Mr. Exotic. That will be coming.
Yes.
We're also going to be diving into Mr. P. Diddy and all the baby oil.
That's gonna be a slippery slope to get on, isn't it? There, you see what I did? I segued into that. That's gonna be interesting, but you guys just have to hold your tits till then, because we don't know when we're gonna do that yet. It is we don't have enough information to do it yet. It's just starting.
Yeah, there's so many things that I've seen, and so many other podcasts that I've seen try to cover it, and it's all just,
you can't cover it yet. It's too early. It's premature.
Yeah, it's speculation and guessing, and I don't want to speculate and guess. I want to have a bit more information. But yeah, all of that's coming. So thank you very much. Thank you for supporting us so much last year and making us grow. And we'll catch you next time. But yeah, Heather, take us away.
I'll try to take us away. Take us to a nicer area. You guys, again, I always have to piggyback off of what Scott says. We appreciate the support. We appreciate you listening to us. We try our best to give you the facts. We try our best to keep a dark case like this, if you could even say, as light as possible. We can't keep it light, but we just, want you to know, like, we give you trigger warnings, etc., because we don't want you to be traumatized by the stuff that we have to deal with. And we talk about this stuff, and me and Scott are still sane somehow, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
just about.
But, as always, we love you. We are so grateful for all the support. So until next time, guys, stay safe, stay spooky, and we'll see you then. Bye.
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 Heather's Heather's raging, old news she screams. The newer cases are all that she dreams. We dive into cases both weird and grim, from Zodiac ciphers to Tiger King's whim. Where You Run podcast, the oddball pair. We're pretty damn good to be fair. You Run podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manton's madness to Tupac's case, we're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a wink and a nod. You Run podcast, approved by God. Probably not. Scott's like, can we talk about movies? Heather's yelling, no, it's time to do this. We're trapped in a world of murder and gore, but hey, at least we've got podcast galore. Toolbox killers are chilling affair, but we're adding our humor to ease up. You Run podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manson's madness to Tupac's case, we're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a wink and a nod. You Run podcast, approved by God. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Scott's like, can we talk about movies? Heather's yelling, no, it's time to do this. We're trapped in a world of murder and gore, but hey, at least we've got podcast galore. Toolbox killers are chilling affair, but we're adding our humor to ease up. You Run podcast.